Murder suspect Richard Allen admits 5 times to killing teen girls in recorded jail calls with his wife and mom. Some documents have been released. It's Stacey Cole and Carol Hughes. Carol filling in for Tony this week. Carol, you know a lot about this story. I'll admit I don't know much about it. Do you want to dive in?
Well, this is the story of these 2 girls who went out hiking. Now, this goes back to 2017. That's how long this crime's been unsolved. So
and they're young.
They were 8th graders. And so they're just going out, walking. I think there was a train crossing there. And, you know, just how kids do. It's a little bitty town, Delphi, Indiana. So it's this little bitty town. And I grew up in a little bitty town, and you could do whatever you wanted. You know, You could ride your bike all over town. You know, you could stay out and you'd hear people's moms yelling for them to come home,
right?
You know, that kind of thing. And so it reminds me, because the town I grew up in was about the same size as their town. So they find the 2 girls have been murdered, and it went unsolved for years. My guess is they had their eye on this guy for a while, but he lived in the community. Like, he was working at the pharmacy. You know, it wasn't like he was just going through town and then he left town. He was there the whole time. But the interesting thing is the girls helped solve their own murder, or are helping, I should say, because he certainly hasn't been convicted yet. But one of them turned on the camera on her phone, and They got a video of him. But it looks like him, but you can't say definitively it's him. And you hear him say something like "down the hill." And
so they have his voice on a recording as well.
Now, I'm not exactly sure how they ended up arresting him, and I don't know all the details on after all these years they were able to arrest him on this. But so that's the backstory, and I can't even imagine for this town and for their families what they've gone through. Like, how horrific, 2 young girls being murdered. And then it looks like by a resident of your town, somebody you do business with, somebody you've probably gone to the pharmacy and talked to about your medications.
That's just so frightening. And, you know, I live in a medium to small town. One of the things that freaks me out is like when the fair comes to town, the county fair, because there are a lot of people from out of town that come in, and we've had some disappearances of young girls during that time. And I'm not saying, I don't want to stereotype, but it's just different people coming from out of town. And we see people at this fair. When I worked in radio, we had to be at the fair the entire week for the radio station booth, and we would see people that we never saw ever at any other time of the year except for this fair, and they weren't quite right. You know, they'd come and stare at you and like just sit in front of the booth, prop a chair up and stare at you for an hour, and come up to you at some point and ask really uncomfortable personal questions to you. And it was like, where are you from? Why haven't we seen you any other time of the year? Why do you come out for the fair? And so it just, to know that this person is somebody who was part of the community is even more frightening. To me, foreigners, and I don't mean foreigners as in people who aren't white. I mean people who don't live in the city come in, and it's like, I guess I could see you doing something because you're not part of the community. This isn't your place. People usually don't shit in their own home, you know?
Right. And
but
this
it's
would
really
be
scary that he lived there.
And this would be what everyone is talking about for a long time. This would be the thing, you know, and my town's pretty good size. It's like 500,000 or something. So it's not a small town, but like BTK is from here. And when he got arrested, that's what everyone was talking about. Or when our team Wichita State went to the Final Four, everyone's talking about it. You know, you have those things where everyone in the community is talking about it. And in this little town, that had to have been the topic of conversation for a long time, because they had found, well, first, of course, the girls are missing. Then they find the girls, they've been murdered, and who done it? So that would have been
why?
And so he was in on conversations about that because that's what everybody would have been talking about.
Well, and especially if he works at a pharmacy, people standing around waiting for their prescriptions, they're going to be talking about the big city news. They're going to be talking about everything that everybody else is talking about. So
and I even
he
read
had to be sitting there listening to it.
And I read that, of course, they had the posters up about, reward for information in this case. Like they had him at the pharmacy.
Absolutely.
So, I think he obviously did a really good job of coming across as just a regular guy until he's a murder suspect.
Yeah. And documents were released yesterday. They reveal that the Indiana man currently incarcerated for the alleged killing of those 2 teenage girls, that he had admitted to the gruesome murders multiple times during phone conversations with his wife and mother. Here's where things get a little fuzzy. They've talked about how his mental status has declined while he's been in jail. So they're not entirely sure, is he just talking about something that he knows something about because it was part of the community's conversation? Is he just admitting to it because his mental capacity is failing? Or did he really do it?
And you don't know. But the fact that he was on the phone, and especially the other end, because as horrible as this may sound, a guy I dated at one time ended up in jail. And so it said every time he'd call me, it would be like, this call is being recorded.
Ew.
I know.
Okay.
I know. That should have been a deal breaker, but whatever.
Well, people make mistakes. What was he in for, if you don't mind?
It was drugs.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't know. I think I might have been 20, 22 in there. I was very young.
So he was a bad boy.
Yeah, of course. And that doesn't seem like a deal breaker when you're 22 years old.
No, that's an attractive feature.
And then at my age, I'm like, no, it's one of those things looking back on it. I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? Anyways, but those conversations are being recorded. And I would assume he knows they're being recorded. But I've heard this in other cases. I heard it recently on another podcast I was listening to about the person talking on the phone. And all of that now goes into evidence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because,
it's basically a confession.
Mm-hmm. And I think they have some pretty good evidence against him. He really does look like the guy. So this just kind of adds to it.
Well, and when you take a look at the story, they talked about how there was a knife that was used in the killings. There was also an unspent round near the victims' bodies that was later matched to one of his firearms. Well, that's problematic. Additionally, investigators found that articles of clothing belonging to the girls were missing from the scene, including a pair of underwear and a sock. Ew. So he's, he is in jail for the alleged murder of these girls. It sounds like they've got some things on him and now possibly a confession. So I'm hoping they're able to pin him to this, because I'd hate for him to be held for this tragedy when somebody out there is the one who really did it. It sounds like he did. I don't understand how they could match one of the unspent rounds near the victims' bodies and have it be matched to one of his guns. It has to be him.
Well, and then in this article, it says on one of the phone calls in April, his wife, I guess, Kathy, who had previously referred, yes, it's his wife. She previously referred to him as, in quotes, her person, hung up when he confessed.
Oh, dear.
Well, because she knew. She's like, shit. But that doesn't mean that she was in any way involved in it. But that I could see being an automatic reaction. Like, this is the person I love. He's wrongfully accused. He didn't do it. I'm standing by him. That might have been how she felt.
And then there he goes and admits, I killed these 2 girls. And she's like, okay, we're ending the conversation now.
And it could have just been an automatic response. Like, shut it down. I can't hear this. And he also confessed to his own mother. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like he's trying to get some things off of his chest. But like you said, this is now evidence, and I guess we'll see what happens. But it sounds like they found their guy.
You're consuming the Hidden Killers podcast.
Want more? Start binging on all of our true crime podcasts right now through Apple Podcasts and get an ad-free experience when you sign up to be a True Crime Today Premium Plus member exclusively on Apple Podcasts.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast dropping soon.
Press subscribe now.